The Dallas Love Field Airport hummed with activity. Travelers darted to and fro, clutching boarding passes and luggage. Near gate C-12, Barron Trump sat quietly, his tall frame folded into a chair that seemed too small for him. Dressed casually in a hoodie and sneakers, his face was mostly obscured as he scrolled through his phone, hoping to blend into the chaos around him. At 17, Barron was accustomed to navigating life in the spotlight, yet he preferred to keep a low profile. He avoided attention wherever he could, but today, fate seemed to have other plans. A gate agent approached the priority boarding area. He was an older man with sharp features and an air of impatience, his eyes scanning the passengers with a critical gaze. When his eyes landed on Barron, something about the teenager's calm demeanor seemed to provoke him. "Young man," the agent called, his tone edged with skepticism, "are you sure you're in the right section?" Barron looked up, startled but composed. "Yes," he replied firmly. "I have a first-class ticket." The agent's eyes narrowed as he studied Barron's casual attire. "Let me see your boarding pass," he demanded. Without a word, Barron handed over his phone, the digital pass clearly displaying his name, Barron Trump. The agent's expression shifted subtly as he read the name, but instead of backing off, his demeanor grew colder. "Wait here," he instructed, walking away without further explanation. Passengers around the area began to take notice, their whispers growing louder. Barron could feel their eyes on him as he sat stiffly in his chair. He kept his head down, unwilling to make a scene, but he couldn't ignore the frustration building within him. Minutes later, the gate agent returned, now accompanied by a supervisor. "There seems to be an issue with your ticket," the supervisor said, her voice firm. "You'll need to step aside while we verify your identity." "What issue?" Barron asked, his tone calm but incredulous. "I've flown dozens of times without a problem." "This is just standard procedure," the supervisor replied curtly. "Please step aside." As Barron reluctantly complied, passengers pulled out their phones, recording the interaction. The hushed murmurs became a low hum of curiosity and judgment. Feeling the weight of the stares, Barron clenched his fists, trying to maintain his composure. He wasn't sure what was happening, but it felt personal. The gate staff huddled behind the counter, occasionally glancing in his direction as if deliberating his fate. After what felt like an eternity, the supervisor returned with 2 airport security officers in tow. "Sir," one of the officers said in a measured tone, "we need to ask you to come with us for further questioning." Barron's frustration boiled over. "What is this about? I've done nothing wrong." "This is just protocol," the officer replied. "Please cooperate." With a resigned sigh, Barron grabbed his carry-on bag and followed them, the stares of the crowd burning into his back. Phones captured every step as he was escorted away from the gate area. Meanwhile, a surprise in the terminal. Across the terminal, Donald Trump strode through the airport, his usual confident demeanor turning heads. Though he was known for his bold presence, today he was here for a more personal reason, to surprise his son before his flight. Donald hadn't seen Barron in weeks and wanted to spend some quality time with him. But as he navigated the busy terminal, his phone buzzed with notifications. Curious, he opened a link sent by one of his aides. It was a video, one that showed Barron being questioned by airport security and escorted away. "What in the world?" Donald muttered, his brow furrowing deeply. He flagged down a passing staff member. "Excuse me, where's the security office?" Sir," the staff member stammered, recognizing him instantly, "it's just down the hall to the left." Without another word, Donald marched in the direction indicated, his mind racing. Whatever was happening, he wasn't going to let it slide. Inside the holding room, Barron sat in a small, sterile room, staring at the blank walls. The officers had taken his passport and ticket, claiming they needed to verify his identity. It had been over 30 minutes, and no one had returned. The door opened suddenly, and the supervisor from earlier stepped inside, her expression neutral. We're still working on clearing up your information, she said flatly. Barron's patience snapped. You've had all my details for almost an hour. What exactly is the problem? The supervisor hesitated, avoiding his gaze. These things take time. This isn't about time, Barron shot back. This feels like harassment. The woman opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, the door swung open again, this time, with force. Donald Trump stepped inside, his face a mask of controlled fury. What's going on here? He demanded, his voice booming. The supervisor's eyes widened in recognition. Mr. Trump, she stammered, this is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Donald interrupted, his gaze sharp. You're holding my son in a back room like a criminal. That's not a misunderstanding, it's a disgrace. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsure how to proceed. Donald turned to Barron, his expression softening slightly. You okay, kid? I'm fine, Barron replied, though his clenched jaw suggested otherwise. Donald turned back to the staff. I want an explanation, and I want it now. The supervisor hesitated, then mumbled something about routine checks and flagged names in the system. Donald wasn't buying it. Flagged, he repeated incredulously. You mean to tell me that out of all the people flying today, you just happened to single out my son? An unexpected visitor. Before the tense standoff could escalate further, a new voice entered the room. Excuse me, is this a bad time? Everyone turned to see none other than Keanu Reeves standing in the doorway, his casual demeanor and iconic long hair unmistakable. He carried a backpack slung over one shoulder and offered an apologetic smile. I don't mean to intrude, Keanu continued, stepping inside, but I couldn't help overhearing. I was in the lounge when I saw the video online. Mr. Reeves, Donald said, momentarily caught off guard, what are you doing here? Just passing through, Keanu replied. He turned to Barron, his tone warm. You holding up okay? Barron nodded, surprised but grateful for the unexpected support. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Keanu gave him a small smile. Hang in there, kid. You've got this. With that, he gave a friendly nod to Donald and excused himself, leaving as quietly as he had arrived. His brief appearance seemed to diffuse some of the tension in the room, at least temporarily. The sterile silence of the holding room was interrupted by Donald Trump's booming voice as he faced the airport staff. His imposing presence made the security officers shift uncomfortably. This is an embarrassment, Donald declared, pacing the room. You've made my son feel like a criminal for no reason. What kind of operation are you running here? The supervisor struggled to respond, stumbling over her words. Mr. Trump, we assure you, this is not personal. It's just protocol. Protocol? Donald shot back. Don't insult my intelligence. Barron's ticket, his passport, everything is in order, and yet you're wasting his time, and mine. The tension in the room thickened as passengers outside began to gather near the glass walls of the holding area, their phones pressed against the glass. The incident was quickly becoming a spectacle, and Donald wasn't about to back down. I want a public apology, Donald demanded. Right now. Out there where everyone can hear it. And I want my son on the next flight without any more of your so-called protocol. The supervisor hesitated, looking to the officers for guidance, but they remained silent. It was clear that Donald wasn't leaving without answers. The apology. Minutes later, the group moved back to gate C-12. The murmurs among the crowd grew louder as Donald Trump strode forward, flanked by Barron and the sheepish-looking supervisor. Phones were out, live streams were running, and passengers were eager to witness what would happen next. The supervisor cleared her throat, stepping up to the microphone at the gate. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled as she spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to address an incident that occurred earlier today involving one of our passengers, Mr. Barron Trump. The crowd hushed, leaning in to listen. Due to a misunderstanding, Mr. Trump was delayed from boarding his flight, she continued. We deeply regret the inconvenience and any discomfort caused. This was not our intent, and we sincerely apologize. The crowd murmured in response. Some nodded in approval, while others seemed skeptical. Donald, standing off to the side with his arms crossed, gave a curt nod of satisfaction. Barron, Donald said, placing a hand on his son's shoulder, let's get out of this mess. But before they could move, a voice from the crowd called out, excuse me, Mr. Trump. Donald and Barron turned to see a man step forward. It was Keanu Reeves. The crowd parted slightly as Keanu approached, his calm presence once again commanding attention. I just wanted to say, Keanu began, addressing Barron directly, you handled that with a lot of composure. Not many people your age could stay that cool under pressure. Thanks, Barron replied, a small smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. Keanu turned to Donald, extending a hand. You've got a good kid here. Donald shook Keanu's hand firmly. I know. And thanks for stepping in earlier. That was a class act. Keanu nodded. Take care of yourselves. With that, Keanu disappeared back into the crowd, leaving behind a wave of murmurs and admiration. His brief cameo had left an impression, a reminder of the power of kindness and calm in the face of chaos. The lesson. As the situation settled, Barron and Donald were escorted to the lounge by airport staff, who now seemed eager to please. A fresh set of boarding passes was issued, and they were promised priority boarding on the next available flight. In the quiet of the lounge, Donald turned to his son. You did great, Barron. You kept your cool, and you didn't let them get to you. Barron shrugged. I guess I've gotten used to this stuff. Donald's expression softened. You shouldn't have to. But remember, no matter what they throw at you, you're stronger than they think. And people like Keanu, they notice. That counts for something. Barron nodded, the weight of the day starting to lift. Thanks, Dad. Donald smiled. Now, let's get home. I'm done with airports for a while. The viral moment. By the time they boarded their rescheduled flight, the videos of the incident had gone viral. Social media was ablaze with commentary, some applauding Barron's calm demeanor, others criticizing the airport's handling of the situation. One post stood out, featuring a clip of Keanu Reeves' interaction with Barron. The caption read, "Even in chaos, kindness shines brightest." It quickly garnered millions of likes and shares, spreading a message far beyond the walls of the terminal. A flight to remember. As the plane ascended into the sky, Barron leaned back in his seat, finally able to relax. He glanced out the window at the sprawling clouds below, his thoughts drifting back to the day's events. It wasn't the day he had planned, but it had taught him something valuable. Strength isn't about avoiding challenges, it's about how you face them. And sometimes, even a stranger's kind word can make all the difference.